Hi, everyone, and welcome to What Your Opticians Wish That You Knew. Today, I am joined by the amazing Kayla Ashlee with Spexy and also the amazing Jen Denham with Optify. So we're going to have these hard conversations that both as an OD that you wish that your staff was doing and vice versa, what your staff wishes that you were doing as an OD to bring it out into the optical to make that sale and that handoff better and more effective, so everybody at the end of the day can be taken care of. So without further ado, Kayla, can you give us a little background of yourself?
Yeah, my name is Kayla. I started out in the optical industry about 16 years ago as an optician. Quickly started managing a few other practices, and now I own a company called Spexy, which is an online education resource for eye doctors and their entire team to get kind of consistent training throughout. And a lot of it is really sales focused because a lot of sales in our industry kind of gets a bad rap in sales. So we teach our industry how to be able to sell properly. So because when you know how to do it properly, it doesn't come off, in a negative way to patients. So that's where we found our success in helping the optical industry.
Amazing. And how about Jen?
Hey everyone, I'm Jen Denham. I am the Chief Growth Officer here at Optify. I spent the majority of the beginning of my career helping small businesses thrive in their local community, and then came on with Optify almost 2 years ago, which is really exciting. Our co-founder started Optify. I was an optician by trade and held a lot of product roles for a lot of companies that you would recognize in the industry, so a lot of street cred there. And they built Optify to really service the opticians and helping them sell in a modern way by having that optical inventory online and then getting patients to engage with it before they come in if they walk out and in between exams. So I'm really excited to kind of bring my expertise of small local business marketing to Optify and really help those independent practices thrive in our modern digital age.
And then I am an optometrist by day, so I have a private practice in South Florida where we specialize in myopia management, scleral lenses, just kind of run of the mill. 75% of my income comes from my optical and selling contacts, and the rest is obviously icing on the cake there. And then the co-founder of Dr.Contact Lens, which is enabling practices to stay agnostic across their brands and have one ordering experience for their patients, one ordering experiences for their doctors and for their staff. And so you can see everything consolidated into one. So making it effective and efficient to order contact lenses. And like all of us on here, we understand what we have with the patient in the middle. And so it's bringing that purchasing relationship back to the prescription. So let's hop in here and get our first question off of the ground. So again, thank you all for being here with What Your Opticians Wish You Knew. We're going to make 2023 our best year. Here we are already at the end of one of the quarters. So again, I'm Brianna Rhue. We've got Jennifer Denham with Optify and Kayla Ashlee with Spexy. So Kayla, I'm going to throw this question to you. Make your optical center visual. Why is this important that we do this? And how can we do it without breaking the bank?
So it's really important when your optical basically has a really amazing appeal that kind of has a sex appeal to it, because let's be honest, online opticals have done a really good job at making eyewear sexy. And for a lot of our offices, we walk into the office and it's a lot of old, a lot of heavy, a lot of oak, a lot of dark, a lot of frame boards that are just really stagnant, right? And so, not all of us have a budget to, do a full revamp and a full, remodel on our optical. But there are things that opticals can be doing to make their optical exciting and enticing. And some things that we find with a lot of our members that are really, really helpful is number one, having frames and having brands that you're excited to showcase. Some offices just carry brands because that's what their buying group says to carry, or what somebody else says to carry, but their office and their team isn't really excited about it. So pick out brands. We're big on independent brands. Pick out brands that are really, really exciting, that have a story behind them. And then a thing that you can do simply, if you are one of those offices that's stuck in, the oak cavern, where you can start to have like a little side table there in your office that, you know, is in the center of the optical, maybe amongst the dispensing tables, and draws a real highlight to those brands. Something that's exciting like that. Another thing that we highly encourage is that when you have patients that are there waiting to go back to see the doctor, encourage them to come over to the optical. So we'll say things like, "Hey, Mary, did you see this new LaFont frame that we got in? Here, let me show you really quick." And so it gets them shopping and gets them excited and kind of gets that mindset from it just being a medical practice to, you know, getting excited about purchasing eyewear.
Great. And then Jen, in optical retail, right, what have the online retailers done well to entice patients to order? And what can we learn from these retailers in our practices?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm gonna say that Kayla hit it right where we needed to think about, and that is the mindset. So what big online retailers have really done well is curated those brands and that experience, that fashion experience you're going to have when you're in that location in a digital place. Because what we know is that more than half of private practice patients are looking online before they're coming in. That was a Vision Council study from 2019. So imagine post-pandemic behavior, it's probably quite a bit higher now. I can't wait to see what that new statistic is. So if we learn from online retailers, there's one we probably all have in our mind right now that's strategically opening a lot of brick and mortar. So what is that telling us? It's telling us that patients like us to meet them where they are, digitally, online, but they also like that experience to come in. So how can we paint that picture? How can we build that bridge from what they're seeing online with the brands you carry, using virtual try-on, which we have, which is powered by Fitting Box, to be able to experience that fashion element that you talked about, Kayla, that fashion element and experience they're going to have with that medical exam. And I think if we can have them experience that before they come in, they do come in, Kayla, in that buying mindset. They're more excited to try them on, they're ready, and they've participated in that buying journey before they've even come in, right? By pre-selecting some frames if they use Optify. So again, big online retailers have recognized for years that people just want a modern buying experience. If you think about your own purchasing behavior, think about the last 10 things that you've bought. I bet a percentage of those things were bought online, right? So it's not a futuristic technology. It's not a nice to have. It really is a need to have technology when you're thinking about your patients and where they are.
And it's about the small things within a practice too. So if you can't and you don't have a budget for all of these, it could be something as simple as repurposing some of these displays, maybe just putting over a coat of paint or using, a crown molding or something along the lines, which is what we ended up doing, and just uplifting the entire office. And so it's not this big, heavy lift that you have to get to. It could be something so simple. And then I always look to outside industries to realize that we're all running small businesses. It doesn't happen to matter what you do, but something like Starbucks does. So is the carpet clean? Are your chairs broken? Could you invest in a new desk that's going to look nicer? How are your pens? Like something so minute and so little that's so inexpensive. Are they nice to write with, right? So something like that can really take that buyer's experience to the next level without really breaking the bank. So don't forget about the little things that you can do as well. So let's move on here to the next question. So why is it important to prescribe and not recommend as doctors? So Kayla and Jen, both being on the receiving end of a prescription that I would have recommended or sent the patient out to the optical without this true handoff. Why is it so much easier for you guys to do your job when the doctor is prescribing and not recommending? Let's throw that to Jen.
Yeah, so what we'd love to send home, and I think that this is an element that really comes from the fact that our co-founder was an optician by trade. What we really want to do is keep both the doctor and the optician the center of that buying journey. And so by allowing your patients to start and be a part of that process before they come in, but then have the doctor reference what they've selected to double down on what they are recommending, and then having the optician take those recommendations, take those pre-selections. We now have a really powerful way to help that optician just have a really smooth optical sales moment. And like Kayla was saying earlier, with some amazing optical training, like with Spexy, and then having that sales intelligence in front of you of what the patient is looking for from a fashion side, what the doctor is recommending from the medical side, you have a really powerful platform to go straight into that cell as the expert. And when that patient leaves, subconsciously, if not, in the forefront of their mind, that experience is teaching them, I can participate, but I really need to rely on my medical professionals, the doctor and the optician, to help me select what's best for my prescription and for my face shape. So even though it seems like a misconception, especially like around Optify of putting your optical online, it's not so much optical e-commerce as more of just allowing them to participate and having that sales data that they need to be a modern salesperson.
And Kayla, your success as an optician really depends on us prescribing and not recommending. So, and that also goes for your two pairs. We make your jobs really hard when we're like, oh, your prescription didn't change, it's okay, or you don't really need that computer pair of glasses, right? It's a much different conversation if I'm like, Kayla, I have prescribed for Miss Smith a pair of sunglasses because she's worried about macular degeneration. So we want to make sure that she doesn't develop that, as I see multiple patients a day that have this, as well as she is an accountant and uses the computer a lot. So we want to make sure that she's comfortable there. So I'm prescribing her computer pair of glasses, make sure that that has the AR on there so we can make sure she has clear, comfortable vision. How much easier is it for you to take that sale versus the one that I said previously?
Oh my gosh, extraordinarily different. It's a totally different thing. One, we're basically running with the baton that you have handed off to us, and we get to continue the race. And the other one is we have to do like a full 360 and try and push the people the other direction from where the doctor let off. So it's one of those things that whatever the doctor says, in relation to like what an optician says to a patient versus what a doctor says to a patient, this is darn near biblical right here. Like when it comes out of the doctor's mouth, it's like, oh yeah, the doctor said so. and not that that's wrong, but it just makes the optician's life so much easier when you do have that recommendation or prescribing from the doctor. And so we had talked about this a little bit previously, and I love the prescribing versus recommending. We have a thing at Spexy where when we teach, the doctors do a great handoff and prescribe a handoff. And then, once it gets out to the patient, we have this reoccurring conversation that keeps happening, right? So the patient starts to slowly work their way into it. So when the doctor prescribes something and then they get out to the optician, and the optician then says, oh, doctor prescribed X, Y, and Z, that allows for, just everything to just kind of segue and go on like it should. Where one thing that we always teach opticians is to say something really easy that allows for, when you get to, you've already made a frame selection and you're already going to, you've already talked about the lenses because doctors prescribe a certain set of lenses. And now we're going to talk about anti-reflective treatment and the really great materials that we're going to put them in to get the clearest vision. So what we like to say, and I'm going to change up all my stuff now to prescribed from recommend, but what we'd always said is, I'm going to give you a quote for the clearest vision that doctors recommended for you today. It's a really, really powerful statement because number one, we're going to give them a quote. They've already, signed up for everything, but they just want to know the price kind of thing. You don't want to steer them away too quickly. And this works for insurance contribution plans and for private pay as well, because, they need the numbers. That's what you got to come down to. You got to pay something, right? So they're going to give you a quote. So it's, a little bit less committed, right? But it's informative, but not committed, right? I'm going to give you a quote for the clearest vision. That automatically allows for you to give them a quote for what you guys have deemed is to be the very best material, the very best anti-reflective treatment, the very best overall experience for that patient, right? that doctor's recommended for you today. Because like we covered previously, if doctor recommends it, it's darn near biblical. So I'm going to give you a quote for the clearest vision that doctor's recommended for you today. Or in this case, I'm going to change it to, I'm going to give you a quote for the clearest vision that doctor's prescribed for you today. But I think it's really, really powerful. And that handoff allows for such an amazing transition and getting that patient into the mindset, because we've already set that. And what I think is so brilliant about what Optify is doing is it's starting that conversation even earlier. They're already kind of making a commitment with their little pre-selection that they're doing. Mm-hmm. So they're already planting that seed. And it's one that, again, they've made that commitment. So then doctor drives that conversation home, and then the optician can pick up on that. It's just another touch point, makes things so much easier.
Yeah, and in our practice, we recently brought in Mark Hinton with iFacilitate, who really made this a bad word, which is recommend. So we're going to have to start this online piggy bank of prescribed versus recommend. And it's funny when you hear yourself say it and you're like, oh, it's like it's become nails on a chalkboard in our practice. And where 65% or 75% of our income is coming from this, it is critical that you pay attention to just one word and what that can do on the back end for everything in your practice. So it's uplifting everybody, and it's giving your opticians the capability to really take what you've done and go from there. So as we've made healthcare, especially optometry over the last 3 years, very sterile, sit here, you can't touch that frame, don't touch that pen, don't look at me. We have to get back into the fun of what medical and fashion meet together. And then you can go from there. And really the sky is the limit, especially as all of our capture rates are significantly higher right now because of everything that happens. So take advantage of that for yourself, because you already have a captive audience, and everybody is hoping, wishing, spending money, hoping that you mess that up, which a lot of the times we do. So that brings us to our next question here. Prescribing multiple pairs from the chair to sell multiple pairs. So Kayla, a lot of the times we look at second pairs as, a high five moment in the practice where it's this thing that doesn't happen very often. And then when you do get a second pair or a third pair, it's a really big deal because it feels pretty good after that. Why is it important that the doctor is prescribing that second and third pair? And how have you seen your own success rate go through the roof?
Yeah, it's another one of those things. I love the teed up questions because it's extraordinarily successful when this happens. Because the conversation back in the exam room with the patient, just privately, one-on-one doctor-patient, really should be, I'm prescribing these lenses to you, and this is why, the progressive is important because it'll give you basically an overall, usage, but we know that you're doing this during the day. And so a computer pair is going to be really beneficial so that you're able to look at your computer easily and be able to read. And, let's also talk about sunglasses. We need to protect your, eyes from, UV damage, and, also protecting the eyes around the skin around your eyes and things like that. People are used to having conversation with their doctor about sunscreen, right? Everyone wears sunscreen to some degree, some more than others, but everyone protects their face from the sun. Why not be having that conversation, from the doctor's side in the exam room? Well, then the next important thing is that when the optician comes back to the exam room for the handoff, the doctor is then basically getting a brief version of that, but saying all those exact same things again in front of the patient to the optician. So they're giving okay, I prescribed this because of this, I prescribed this because of this, and I prescribed this because of this. So then again, with the touch points, they're getting 3 touch points right there. But when they get out to the optical, the optician then has the ability to have that conversation with multiple pairs already in mind because it was handed off that way. And so where we see a lot of doctors really lose this is, we're trying to be cognitive of recommend from the chair. And so we recommend from the chair.
Prescribe from the chair.
I'm sorry, prescribe from the chair. See, what was that, $5 into our curse jar?
We're going to have a really good time in Vegas. That's all I have to say.
So when we prescribe from the chair, thank you. there, have all this mindset of making this decision back in the exam room, but so many miss this very vital part of making that recommendation, making that prescription again and prescribing that again to the optician. And that's a huge missed opportunity, because what happens is it's not fresh in our mind as the optician, and the patient hasn't been hit with that again. And so it's a huge opportunity that's missed right there. And that's where we see it, where doctors are prescribing from the chair, but they're not prescribing again during the handoff. And when that actually happens, the flow and the ability for the office to sell more multiple pair goes up greatly.
And then Jen, with Optify, what I've even seen in my own practice is when people are doing this pre-shop, and I will tell you, it's not the people that you think are going to pre-shop that are pre-shopping. It really is this like older generation that is sitting there and doing this. We looked at our numbers the other day, and out of 27 patients, we had 7 patients that actually pre-shop. So it is something that people are doing. But when they're selecting multiple pairs and they're sitting there, right, that also gives your optician an opportunity for them to start an eyewear collection, right? We all don't own one pair of shoes. I mean, maybe in Florida, because that's all I wear is like flip-flops. But in other parts of the country where you guys live, where there's snow, we don't have one pair of shoes, right? So how can Optify, or even just in this emphasis where the patient is telling you they like multiple pairs, right? And then we're like, oh, your prescription didn't change. It's not that big of a deal, right? We shoot ourselves in the foot a lot. So how can that help you?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 2 things here, but first I'm going to say we need to talk about that pre-shop. We need to get that up much higher in your practice. So I'm excited to dig in with your team there. But the first thing is obviously, having the ability to prescribe from the chair, and then giving your opticians those tools, right? They have so much in front of them now. Imagine not having to extract their lifestyle, preferences and their hobbies and everything. They've done that before they come in. And if they have a sunglass in their pre-selection, should be a 2-pair sale. But let's add a little bit of realistic light onto this scenario. Some practices, they don't have very much time. In the light of where we are in this industry, there's a lot of understaffing. There's opticians that are having to move people through optical. There's people that are waiting to come into optical. And I'm not sure what the exact stat is, but I know the longer that someone is in that department or waiting, the chances of them buying even one pair goes down pretty significantly. So I think do exactly what both of you have just said. That baton pass off from digital to exam back to optical is crucial, and making those things really seamless for that patient. But then allowing that patient to maybe make a decision on one pair, being okay with that, not seeing that as a failure, because that something like Optify can follow your patient outside the 4 walls of the practice for multiple pair discounts in between exams. And I really want us to think outside of the box when it comes to multiple pairs. Multiple pairs in between exams does not have to mean in the practice, right? So by allowing your patients to be able to, maybe they're on vacation, they sit on their sunglasses, can they be serviced right now from your practice by being able to go online, select something, getting a price quote, and being able to complete that and pick them up when they're back? Or do they have to think, man, and now I need to go in and have a whole conversation? So let's really think about multiple pairs in between exams that can happen in a digital place, and allowing those patients to walk out if they need to. I have 2 boys. I know we're all boy moms here, which I love. Sometimes things come up. I got swim, I got robotics, I got coding, I got violin lessons. I can't always spend the amount of time that I want to spend, with my medical professionals, from my esthetician to my eye doctor, but allowing me to be able to go and then buy what I want in a modern way is another way to increase not only multiple pair sales, but average order value per patient. So I think it's really important to focus on that as well.
And I think here it comes also to paying attention to sunglasses. And my optical was notorious for this. We didn't sell sunglasses because we didn't have sunglasses on the board. It's a really point of contention, I think, for many opticals, because this is a rotating fashion accessory a lot of the times. And living in South Florida, you think my sunglass rate would be through the roof, and it's not. So when we did this training, what Mark had said, he goes, every single pair of glasses in here, every frame can be made into a sunglass. And our sunglass sales went through the roof. So it also starts with an internal belief from you as the practitioner on what you're selling in your optical, because that is an extension of you, and you got to care a little bit about this. So Kayla, how can we pay attention to sunglass sales? Again, when we're prescribing from the chair, the importance of sunglasses, especially more than ever now, right? How can we make that handoff easier, and where should we be displaying these in our optical, and why is it important to even pick off a sunglass and just have the patient sit there and fiddle with it while you're writing up an order? Walk us through some of that.
Yeah, you definitely, and we have been able to, with all of our data with Frame Turn, which is a service that that Spexy has, we have actually been able to track the benefits of this and the ability for these sunglass brands to be able to sell when certain things are in order. And so the first thing to realize is, back to, you know, the sexiness of eyewear, or what could be sexy, is sunglasses are sexy. Sunglasses are hot. You don't have to worry about prescriptions in all of them. You don't have to, they, you know, they're very fashion forward. You know, maybe you're that cool guy who wears sunglasses at night to a date. You know, you never know. Sunglasses are very multi-use,
Your
right?
hobby,
It could just be all
Kayla.
about a vibe.
He's a sunglass at night kind of guy.
He's not, but there are those guys out there. No, so anyway, sunglasses they have this amazing, awesome, fun sex appeal. And so a thing that a lot of offices really miss out on is we take our sunglasses, our small selection of sunglasses, we'll talk about that in a second, that we have, and we stick them in like this corner of the office that's over there. Well, not only does that keep them from, you know, really being touched and all that attractive, because it's often, you know, the dungeon corner over there, but it is also harder for the opticians to make that second pair conversation happen when they have to go all the way over there to get the sunglasses. The alternative that we have actually found and been able to monitor in our offices that works really, really well is to have a sunglass area, but also have your sunglasses distributed amongst the ophthalmic frames as well. So for example, if you have, let's just say that you are an office that has a bunch of rows. That's how you display is on frame boards, right? So let's say you have 2 or 3 rows of Lafonts. What we recommend is that at eye level, you have 2 to 3 sunglass frames going across those, and have basically kind of like a sunglass strip that runs across your office, right? So it keeps a consistent, you know, for the OCD people like myself, look, so it's not just complete chaos, but it also has these frames that are there and beautiful and easy to grab. So what's really great is your patient has it there at eye level so that they can see it, right? So it pops out at them. So likelihood of them being able to grab it is very high. But then the other thing too is that, let's say you have the other Lafonts there and you say, oh gosh, we have these Lafonts here. And you know, the optician has already picked that pair, and the patient loves that ophthalmic pair. Well, you know what? This is a great compliment to that. Check out this Lafont frame. It was actually designed at the same time with kind of the same flare, just a little different color. Check this out. Opening up that conversation and having it right there versus, oh yeah, and have it be a secondary thought, I need to go pick out sunglasses for this patient, is really, really powerful. The other thing that I want to highlight too is that so many of us have a really low sunglass display area. And I get it, because if you're not selling sunglasses as much in your office, then why have a, you know, investment in bringing those sunglass frames in? But we have found that there is some data behind it. Being a huge numbers dork myself, we ran all the data on this, and there is a huge number, I guess, consistency across the board that we call an under showcase number. And pretty much for most offices, it's around 12. So if you don't have 12 of that particular brand to be able to really showcase that brand, it's hard for that brand to sell. And this goes for sunglasses too. So making sure that you have enough of that unique brand to be able to showcase so that people can look at it and see the different types that are available within that brand is really, really powerful. So not just where the sunglasses are located, but make sure that you have enough for patients to be able to shop it.
Yeah, and there is a stat around surrounding your contact lens patients also too, where if you fit a brand new patient with sunglasses, or fit a brand new patient with contact lenses, within 24 to 48 hours, they are going to purchase a sunglass without any recommendation or prescription from you. So this is, again, I'm moving you into contact lenses where we can prescribe you a sunglass. I'm going to make sure that JC at the front, make sure that these fit your face properly to help protect you from the sun while you enjoy getting used to your new contact lenses. So it doesn't take an added like 5-minute conversation, but it's just some low-hanging fruit that we're letting people down the road pick up, because again, we're letting these customers and these patients just walk out of the door. So Jen, I'm going to throw this next question to you. Why is it important that we're connecting the patient's health back to what we're prescribing? And how can we make it not so fashion oriented, but also that medical piece that is so important here? Not a Zoom until somebody says you're on mute.
Camera mode. Okay, so I think it's also really important that you're understanding that this is a fashion device, especially to sunglasses for them. And because of the landscape of buying things online, fashion online, that we want to meet them where they are. And I know I keep saying this, but I think what I've learned in this industry is that there may just be, I don't know if you guys would agree with me, a little bit of tech aversion here and thinking that it's futuristic thinking. But I think if people just stop for a minute and thought about what they do in their own personal lives, and you're right, Bree, that it's not just one age demographic or those who live around a metro. These are people who live in rural areas, practices that people drive an hour to go to see their doctor across all age ranges. I love the story of the older gentleman that came in and said, my wife pre-selected the frames I'm allowed to try on, and those are the only ones I'm allowed to buy. And so
that's amazing.
It's amazing. And the opticians I think that we've heard from have said, you know, unfortunately, we were kind of not only price, but style and multiple pair judging patients before they even came in. And so I think, again, allowing them to participate in that is really important. But again, back to the medical part of it, right? A lot of the misconceptions can be, well, if I'm telling my patients to go online, then they're going to start going online and I'm kind of pushing them there. So let's just hit that head on. They already are. And that's not even for me, that's from the Vision Council, right? They're already online. But what is that experience? If you really think about it, what is that subconscious experience that they're getting if they pre-select frames? They're prescribed, no $5 in the jar for me, prescribed from the chair, and then prescribed and recommended maybe some bundles from the optician, right? Now, I love when some opticians that we talk to that use Optify in their practice will say, well, my patients pre-selected like 5 frames and they didn't buy any of those. They ended up with a different pair. And I'll say, that's great. Do you want to know why that's great? Because they participated in the journey, but then you held that role with the prescribing verbiage from the doctor to really get the right frame on their face and the right lens on their face. So when they leave your practice, they're going to say, wow, I saved a lot of time. We were able to go straight into what's best for me. I'm glad I didn't go online to another online retailer because I wouldn't have selected the right thing for myself. Right? So again, it's allowing them to participate in what they do, but keeping the doctor and the optician the center of that buying journey is really, really important.
Yeah, and I think that this also comes back to just any RX that you have, whether it's a contact lens prescription or an eye drop that you're prescribing. I was just in Walgreens this morning that I had to get contact lens solution for slime that was being made in the library today, since I was going to help donate that. And like this poor guy was in there and he's like looking at all these eye drops. And I was like, don't say anything. Don't say anything. I just like watched him and he's like picking up this one and he's like taking a pic. And I was like, oh my gosh. So it comes down that you're there to be that for the patient and they want you to prescribe things to them. But then also, is it an $8 box of drops? Is it contact lenses? So looking at what customer acquisition cost is, we don't really think a lot of that, but you have a live fish on the hook, right? And so that's where it's important to really take these moments appointment while they're in your office and making sure that they're not walking out, right? So go through that whole customer experience. And first off, for a business owner that happens to be an optometrist. And so this is where you get to act like that and be there for your patients. So also remember you as a consumer, how you're buying. And there's little things that you can do here or there to really capture those sales and making sure that you're connecting the RX back to your hard work for your practice to not only benefit, but to grow. So these patients aren't walking to the online world. So we do something very, very special with vision. That's what you have to do. People are really hoping that you mess up and they're banking on it, literally banking on it. So that's, I think, where these are not heavy lifts that you have to do, anything that we're saying, which I like because these are candid conversations. I'm short-staffed just like the whole world, right? So, and then the fire extinguisher needed to be replaced, right? So, and I had to see 17 or 18 patients that day. So where can you allocate some of these resources to benefit your practice and benefit you? So make sure that you get your staff involved with some of these decisions. So here, optimizing a patient's time within your optical. Kayla, we know the stat, right? Where it's like 60 minutes. And as soon as they hit 60 minutes, the buying power just goes down and down and down and down. Why is it important and why is it critical to optimize the patient's time within the optical?
Well, what you're referencing is the fact that we're all busy, like we've already talked about, and any parent who is a boy mom knows that this is a lot. But parents overall, or even people who aren't parents who just have a lot going on in their work life and everything else, there are always things happening, and I can't make it through one appointment. Whether it be at my hair salon or even at a massage, like I have to turn my phone completely off and then like keep it like in the other room because there's not one appointment that goes by that I don't get 3, 4, 5 messages, whether it's, from one of my team members or from my kid or from, somebody forgot their lunch or, one of those things. It's ridiculous.
Or Brianna saying we need to do another recording.
That's perfect. I love those ones. So we have all of these things that are hitting us all the time. And every moment, not even up to that full hour, every moment that they're in their office, there's something taken away where we're losing their mental attention that they have on us and getting glasses and being in the office and getting a good exam and maybe they're prescribed contacts and maybe they're prescribed a backup pair of glasses and maybe they're prescribed all these things. So what happens as we start ticking away at that invisible little tolerance meter is they end up going, okay, what do I have to have right now? And they'll get the thing that they have to have and then they're like, boop, I'm out. So the timing is really, really important. Being very conscious of, people's time in today's society is really, really important. And, anything that we can do from the, from before they come in, pre-shop, before they come in or once they walk in the door to getting them out the door, the thing to understand is once they pull into your parking lot, that's when the time starts. It doesn't matter if they shut up 30 minutes early. That's when the time starts. So that's why, doing things like when they are there early and the doctors, or they're there on time and the doctor's not ready for them, getting them out in the optical to be looking around and things like that is really important to keep them active and being in that mindset, because the more we can get done in the least amount of time is really, really, really vital.
And what you've been able to do, I think it's important to understand really what your exam only rate is, because that's actually what is hurting your practice significantly, and understanding that buying process of when that patient said no. It could have been to you point blank in the exam chair that they wanted to go somewhere else, right? Or it could have been even in the beginning of the appointment, right? So Miss Smith walking in and saying, I have Joey, I got to go pick up at 2:00 and it's 1:30, right? You already know that patient's walking. So when can you look at and help facilitate your practice to be better? What do you guys have in Kayla that you guys have put together to help us?
Yeah, so we have I like to think of there's a saying out there, I don't know who said it, but life is your own personal experiment, right? So if you want to change something about your life, change it. And then you have the opportunity to assess it after you change it and say, was that a good change or a bad change, right? Is that something I'm going to keep doing, or I'm going to go further, or what am I going to do? Well, at Spexy, what we've done is we started really monitoring walkouts, and not just the number of walkouts, but why the heck they're leaving, right? And so many of us go, I don't know, or, oh, they're going online, or, oh, they're going to big box, or, something like that. But we don't know really why they're leaving. And very few patients will actually just come out and be like, oh no, I already, picked something out online, I'm going there, right? So
they're
what we
saying
do
that
is,
now.
yeah, but even at that, how many are not saying anything, right?
Right.
The opportunity is to be able to really track things. So we have a form, we actually call it the dang it form, but it's basically a situational walkout form, where you have this form and you print it out in your office, have it in the exam room, stashed in there, have it maybe stashed out on a dispense table. And the opportunity with this walkout form is it allows for your team to, when the patient, has shut it down, it allows for your team to track how far that patient got, the things that were prescribed to them from the exam room. And hopefully they were prescribed and not just, oh, no change for Miss Smith today, right? It allows for you guys to be able to track what happened there. And so there's spots for the doctor to fill out or the optician to fill out. And the really powerful thing that we teach at Spexy in using this form is we teach you how to open up the conversation with the patient in a non-aggressive manner, right? Rather than, well, why are you leaving? You don't want to do that. That'll put up a wall real quick. But if you have the patient who maybe says, oh, I picked out a pair online, I would come to them and go, as the optician, I really like to have, the freshest, newest styles here in our office. Do you mind showing me the kind of style that you liked, so I can make sure that in the future we have that here for other patients? That's going to be extraordinarily informative. And likely if you go, oh, we have a frame that's very similar to that, but the patient didn't see that out there because to them, it just looks like a sea of all black frames, right? So it allows for, number one, you to hopefully try and save that. But a really important thing as part of our experiment is to be able to track and monitor what the heck is going on. So what we encourage our offices to do is to take these forms, have them all piled up, and every week or every 2 weeks or whatever, management sits down and kind of goes over it to find consistencies. Maybe it's just one person who keeps screwing it up, to be honest. Maybe it's, that there's one consistency in a doctor, that one doctor, we just have a lot of walkouts. And then once
They're
you're able to
prescribing
track
or
that,
recommending, which one is it?
So what you can do is be able to further that, experiment in what are we going to do and what tools do we need in order to fix this problem. And it's actually been a really great tool in offices, because what happens is you think that this is all going to come from management, and the management has to come down and go, okay, we have a problem here that we need to fix. What ultimately happens is a lot of self-reflection. So as the optician is writing that down, they're like, ooh, I didn't say this, or, hey doc, they walked, and the doc's like, yep, I messed that up. I was
Yeah, and I
talking that
think
they
it's
could get
also
something cheaper elsewhere,
important to not just like bang up on our practices too on these walkout rates, but it also
Yeah,
is celebrating what's happening too. So for the month that's
absolutely.
coming up, what you could even do is just something so simple as like a sticky note of 2 little trays that we all have in our practices, right? One was the patients that all ordered something, whether it was glasses or contact lenses, go into a little checkbox, and the ones that walked go out over here. And hopefully the other pile is bigger than the other pile. But Jen, with you at Optify, you're also allowing those conversations to continue outside if they do have to go. How are you guys doing that?
So that's a really good point. And I think that walkouts and pairs in between exams is, a pain point for practices, and they focus on it, and it tries, like you said, Bree, to not be, a negative conversation with opticians, because they are really maxed out right now. And sometimes one pair feels like a win, especially to, those patients that may be dead set on going to Costco and getting a hot dog and some glasses. So I think with a
Say
lot of
Costco
training,
one more time. Call me an angry elf one more time.
So I think, again, there's so much you can do with optician training like that Spexy provides, right? To just give them the right tools. It's as easy as one word, from recommended prescribe, or, a bundle versus 4 pairs, or a collection. I love that word. But also, I think thinking about where we are right now and having technology like, Optify or Dr.Contact lens that takes that pressure a little bit off the optician and the patient to say, I understand you have to go pick up your kids. Here's what we can do. We're going to select this one pair, and then I'm going to send you some links where you can select a few more frames or you can get a price quote, and we can go ahead and continue that. So tonight when you're watching Netflix or, putting together the science project for your kids, class tomorrow, we can finish this up online. And I think a lot of opticians feel like when someone walks out, that's the moment of failure, right? And I think we can kind of open up our minds to say, it's okay. People are busy. They can walk out because I have a tool where I can extend my selling power outside the four walls of my practice. And one of the greatest tips that we got from one of our practices, they are using a walkout flyer. So when those patients do have to leave, or when they're as bold as to say, I'm just going to go buy online, we have trained from some of the best practices to have those opticians say, you are more than welcome to go look online. I'm going to hand you, it's a flyer. It has the practice information on it and a QR code to scan to go to their Optify site, which is all branded for that practice's site. Nothing ever says Optify. And they say, you're more than welcome to go online. Our online store is open 24/7. Dr. Rhue really wants to make sure we get the right lens and right frame on your face. And so we can go ahead and help you do that online. Unfortunately, and we say this with a smile, if you do buy from another online retailer, we're not able to fix that here in your practice. So let's go ahead and, scan that QR code when you get home. I'm more than happy to help you because I know you got to run. And that tangible little flyer with that experience that they've just had with their medical professional that they know, like, and trust, and probably pass your practice multiple times during their, daily lives throughout the month. We've just connected, modern meets their relationship, which I think is really powerful.
Yeah,
I think that's, can I interject really fast?
Yeah.
Something that you just said, Jen, that I think is absolutely brilliant. And Brianna, you hit on it as well. But the fact that, when patients would walk out, whether it was just one pair or no pair at all, it was such a loss and such a devastating thing for opticians. It stinks. You're walking back with your tail between your legs, right? Back to the lab. And the thing is that that's still the case for many, many, many opticals until you have a tool like what Optify allows for you to do. And even Dr.Contact lens, where behind, once the patient is gone, you can still get that patient, right? The door is still open. There's still opportunity, the story's not over yet, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where before, and still so many offices that aren't using this technology, basically you have that one shot every 2 years or every year, hopefully if they come in every year, but for most of them, it's every 2 years, you have that one shot. So, it was just like such a big to do, but now you've got that one shot while they're there, but then you also have these other opportunities with this technology. I just really wanted to highlight that because that's what so many offices are missing out.
Yeah. And it comes down to investing in your practice with the future, so you can continue to be there for your patients. And so I know obviously with Dr.Contact lens, when we're showing all the money that's walking, it's not just your office, it's one patient per day. And it's way more than that, but one per day times 5 times 52 times 40,000 of us, right? Collectively, we all get to rise to be better doctors for our patients by connecting the prescription back. So if you just look at the customer acquisition cost for what these other people are spending to get a customer, one of them spends over $125 to just get the patient into their pipeline. You're spending maybe $1 to keep that patient within your practice, within those four walls, or even in that online world. So really understanding what it costs you to not invest in technology versus what that cost is that's coming out of your wallet. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Love that. Love it.
But here, and we'll wrap this up here, but embracing the clicks to bricks to clicks mindset, I think, Jen, you kind of hit on that, but it's super important that we are going a little further than those four walls. And we have built what everybody else is building behind us. So again, capitalizing on what you already have and doing a great job with your patients. They love you. They want to come back and see you. We're transitioning one of the doctors out of our practice, and we have these little cards that everybody's filling out on saying, what did you love about this doctor? Really cool to see what these patients are writing. He listened to me. He spent time with me. He prescribed what was necessary to get me better. So these are things that people care about, is the time that you looked them in the eye, the time that you spent them, that you listened to them. So make sure that you're putting on those listening ears, especially as opticians also, and you can pick up on those really subtle cues in there. And here, Kayla, why is it important that we invest in training?
Because we all need to be learning continually is the short of it. But ultimately, in our industry, we're a very, very, very busy industry. We're very, I rarely will ever hear someone go, "Oh, I'm bored," because there's always things to do. You're always, fixing this patient, or there's a set of glasses over here that you need to, that you need to check in, or there's this that needs to happen, or doctor needs you over there. We're all so darn busy, and like we all referenced earlier, very short staff these days. And so to be able to have a tool like Spexy, this is my own little plug here, to be able to have a tool like Spexy where you're able to have access to an online learning portal that is kind of like a Netflix style way of learning, where your team has access to this online learning that they can access at any time that they need, is hugely valuable. And then the other great thing is that you have this major consistency with the training. So that your office manager is seeing the same training that your front desk gal was seeing, that both opticians over the last 3 years were hired are seeing. You have this consistency, this foundation that you guys can grow upon. Because often we see when offices, though they have the best of intent, and maybe they have a designated trainer for the first 3 weeks that they come into the office, how amazing would that be? But you always have these other things going on, right? You're always getting these little interruptions. And what we see in offices is that when you have a really great training like Spexy, where you have access to this online training, what happens if you're supposed to have a staff of 5 people and you're down one, right? So you're hiring. So what do you do when you go to hire this person? You take this person off the floor, your best person, you take them off the floor to go hire this one. Well, what happens when you're supposed to be having an office full of 5 people is that you keep getting this one pulled back. And eventually what we do is we end up throwing this little guy off the boat. All right, hope you swim, right? And though a lot of us are learning on the job and learning as we go, there's a lot of things that are missed when that style of training is ultimately pushed upon this new person. And so to have a consistent training amongst your team is really, really vital. And then on top of that, to have a consistent training that everyone in your office is hearing about. Your front desk person should be able to answer typical foundational, simple questions about the optical without having to put that person on hold and get them over to the optical and interrupt somebody else from doing their job. And that's a lot of things that we saw were missed as well. And something that we value very much at Spexy is to make sure that every position in the optical is well aware of how all the other positions work, to be able to make sure your patient has a complete journey throughout your optical. So that's what we provide at Spexy. It's not just optician training, it's training for every person within your office. And we have it there for membership. Our membership is like $34 a month for your office. So it's pretty awesome. And we never have contracts at our office, at our business. So the cool thing about that is that you stay as long as you love us. So we work really hard for your love.
Love it. And here with the processes, right? So Jen, in marketing and things like that, it all is a process. And as doctors, we love the medical side because that's where we learn and that's where we grow. But it's super important and fun on the other side. And why is it important that we invest in certain processes?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I want to have a little bit of tough love, and I'll say it with a smile, but I think that a lot of things that we're talking about here today may be in your mind of when you're watching this as, oh, that would be really nice to have. Dr.Contact lens would be really nice to have, and some staff training would be really nice to have. I think you said it earlier, you run a business and you're a medical professional. And I think as a business owner in 2023, we should, especially with the staffing issues, have a awesome power tool like Spexy for our opticians. And we should have the ability to be able to have our patients get their contact lenses from their medical professional. And we should give our opticians the ability to see what patients want to try on before they come in, right? So I think you don't have to bite all off at once, but I think understanding that the processes don't need to be more paperwork, more meetings, more discovery, but looking at things that are low cost as a business operator and see, these are needs to have if I'm going to operate a successful business in 2023, regardless of my patient age, demographic. I mean, if you ask people what they wanted back in the day, they'd say a faster horse versus a car, right? So we really need to think about what we're doing in our lives now. We're shopping online, we're digital, we're on our phone, all age ranges. Grandparents across our nation are, FaceTiming you and on Instagram, and they're buying from Instacart. And so let's allow them to make our practices a more seamless experience, which I think is just really, really valuable with that clicks to bricks to clicks.
Yeah, and I want to show one little thing here before we wrap this up, because we don't realize what things add up to. And so here, if you're seeing 15 patients a day, I'm going to give you some time off. You're working 4 days a week and you take some vacation, right? You're seeing 3,000 patients here in any given year. And that's obviously dependent on the doctor. In clinics with contact lenses, about 30% of those patients are contact lens wearers, and around 20% of patients are walking out of the door. So even the average person is spending or has a sign above their head with a $300 bill on it. So when you're handing them a paper copy of their prescription, whether it's your optical prescription or the contact lens prescription, you're letting about $50,000 walk out of the door when you think that your capture rate is really good, or that your reorder rate is really good. And so this is in every single one of our practices. I just did a demo where this number was over $650,000. So it's about looking at this and going in with both eyes open on what you can do to be there for your patients in certain parts of their buying experience. And remember yourself as a consumer. I think a lot of the times we forget at the end of the day that we're a consumer. So just like Jen was talking about the Amazons of the world and shipping here and all of that, where can you figure out that patients are also consumers and wrap that all together? So with that being said, thank you so much for joining all of us. Thank you, Kayla at Spexy. You can find more at bspexy.com. You can also learn more about Optify at optifyonline.com. Is that correct?
You got it.
And then Dr.Contact Lens at drcontactlens.com. So take time. If you don't have the time, make sure you're delegating this time to somebody else to be your chief innovation officer behind you, so you can obviously be that engine in your practice. And one last thing, stop recommending, start prescribing. Your patients are wanting you to do this. So with that being all said here and wrapped up in one little pretty bow, thank you all so much for joining us and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks.